Hello. So yeah, Van here. Thank you for having me, Vishal, and all of you. So I'm excited to be here. This is my hello screen, as you can see. So as many of you already know me, I'm a film director and motion designer. I've been a TA for School of Motion for the last 5 years. And I've been working on this field, it feels like forever. I work at an animation studio for almost 9 years, doing editing at the beginning, and then moved into VFX and compositing to finally be the head of post-production there and directing films and one of the series as well, series at the studio as well. And finally, after all those years, I moved into the freelance realm of things. So yeah, that's about my history, let's say, or my career. So recently, I've been involved in many conversations with friends, and I discover I'm an ideas person. So what's that, right? What's an ideas person? Maybe we are all ideas persons, I assume. But yeah, basically, as like you, I like to think about things. So yeah, and of course, I like to think about things I love. And in this case, we are here today because one of these things, this is cinematic language for motion design. So what is cinematic language for motion design? It feels like it's clear and it's not at the same time, I would say. But it basically has this term that it's cinematic and it has motion and it has design. So it's sort of, I'd say when I'm going to refer to cinematic language as film grammar, because I'd say that in film school, we learn film grammar, all things film grammar, like shot sizes, camera movement, transitions, camera angles, framing and composition, and much more, like, lighting, sound design, editing, everything. You need to learn everything to be able to direct the film. And of course, script writing, storytelling, all this kind of stuff as well. So the thing is, when we mix the film grammar with animation and design, what I say is that we can really push our motion work to the next level. And this is what mainly, animation and design. Yeah. So and this is what mainly I'd say that these big studios are doing nowadays. Right? Like one of my favorites is Ordinary Folk. I have plenty of examples in a little bit. I will show you. They're killing it with this kind of cinematic language they're using in their work, and it helps to sort of stand out when you start using this film grammar into or this cinematic language into your animation work. It really makes a difference because you can navigate many things like transitions or structure, or using just a simple, camera movement to tell something very specific, but you are doing it for a reason. You move the camera for a reason, and you use sound design. And recently, I've been in this Guardians of the Galaxy, the last Guardians of the Galaxy film, and I don't know if any of you have seen the film, but the first shot, there are two shots. There is the camera is pushing into the raccoon face, and then it's pulling back, and the music is different, but it's so much like the entire film is condensed in those two shots. That it's like it would be one shot. Like the idea is to be one shot, but if there are two, like in the past and the present. Well, yeah. So what I say is motion designers, we always learn to design, to animate, to rig things, to add effects to our work, to do more effects, more complex rigs, trends, but when do we learn to tell stories visually? That's my question. When do we learn? When the clients arrive with a brief, And so it's just words, when you have the meeting with the client, you just write down a brief. It's, hey, this is what we need to do. But then we need to translate all these words into a solid visual narrative. And of course, it needs to sell something and communicate the message. So how do we do this? As motion designers as well, as I think that we use many hats. We are designers, animators, and we are also directors and producers of our own, mainly when we work with direct clients, right? When we work for studios or agencies, we might have just one specific role, and that could be okay. But if not, we need to take care of many other things as well. So in this cinematics language, so there is one thing that I say that is like the core of everything. And this is the story. Whenever we have to move something on the screen, let's say it's a character or it's a dot or it's a triangle or square. So if we have a story, the story has sort of all the answers for this movement but not only the movements, but for how to go with the art direction for this film, for this animated piece, what colors are, what color palette we should use. Whatever the question is, the story always has the answer. And if there is no story, but many times my students tell me like, oh yeah, but there is no story, this is just the design. Or whenever you have a design, you have a visual hierarchy there. So if you follow the visual hierarchy of your design, you can find out a little story or even made it up yourself. And just, try to follow in this is the more important element on the screen. This is just barely important. So from there we can pull out a story and animate it from that idea. So I'd like to tell you a little story today about me. And this starts with this question, and it's why do we fall? And it might sound like an empty question or a big question, but yeah, I know 1 or 2,000 things I'd say about falling. It's like, oh, a very dramatic person, so you might know this guy, Christopher Nolan. He made these films called Batman Begins. And there is this quote I have from this film that I like. It says, why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up. And this quote makes sense to me. So, like, my story goes, when I was in my 20s, in my early 20s, my parents died. So I was so young and I had a life, and all of a sudden I hadn't that life anymore, and it felt like falling and falling and falling. And then it was a very dark time and I felt paralyzed, but I didn't know I was paralyzed, In my mind, everything was still in motion, and my engines were totally stopped. So from that point, I went into, all these years in this static phase that I call it, until, one day I realized that even that suspended time, I was alive. All these things kept being in motion in my mind, in my inner self, I would say. But yeah, so one day I just, after maybe 10 years of crying, I was, okay, that's enough. I woke up and I said, okay, that's enough. So I learned my way into the light. I left the static phase and behind and put myself in motion. So here I'd like to, make a contrast or highlight these two words, static and motion. Okay, so the contrast between these two things is something I care about. And there is this quote that makes sense to me as well. It says, we must always find a way to move forward, no matter what hits come our way. So I kept thinking about things around this, moving forward, static phase, feeling the motion inside, staying in the same place at the same time. And I observed that when we move, when we enter this motion phase, whatever it is we need to do, let's say catch a train, that we are late for the train, and so we need to rush through the station to catch the train on time, or if we are waking up in the morning very early and we're so sleepy and we walk very slowly to the kitchen for a morning coffee. So these kind of movements are so different, right? If we need to translate this into pictures, into visuals, they always need a different kind of approach. A visual narrative needs to be different. We cannot say the same things. Well, we cannot use or say the same words. The same we say fast or slow, we use one type of language to represent it or the other. So what I'd say is that when we move, we do it for a reason. And that's something I like to make a point here in this idea. When we move, we do it for a reason. And we, in film language, we call it motivated movement, right? And so there is something that triggers this motion. And this could be something that's happening on screen, or it could be something that's just happening in our heads. We need to trigger this motion for a reason. It's because we have two dots on screen and they're moving to the right side. We can give them a little story. One is, is thinking he's not going to make it through, they're going to race through the screen, and one is so excited about it, the other one is tired and it's not super happy about it. So maybe one is moving more, with this kind of type of movements, while the other, it's being represented in a different way. So that's a way to think about things in our screens, in our compositions, and help them make sense. In the end, when sometimes my students also say, how is this gonna make sense for the viewer? Maybe they don't know why I'm thinking about them racing through the screen. They don't know the exact story, but they will understand the feeling you are giving to each one of the elements. So how do we move? How we move, I would say, depends on the why. I need to wake up in the morning. I need to get fresh for my morning routine. So I move slowly to the kitchen, and that's okay. It's slowly. But if my son needs to get up and go to school and we are late, so maybe this is gonna be totally different. So that's why I'm doing the things. We change the language. So, and now again, it's a little bit the same, maybe, that when we are transitioning from one thing to the next, we are in fact moving from one thing to the next, from one other. And I'm mentioning this about transitions because in this cinematic language or in animation, we I'd say live through so many transitions. We can morph things in every way possible. We are, for me, animation is like the most, infinite realm of possibilities. We can do whatever we want, but the things we are going to do, they need to be there for a reason. It needs to be motivated by the story we tell. It's not random. It's not like, okay, we just, move this like this and this again. So it maybe looks good, but it's gonna be like another level of meaning if you give things a reason. So camera movements in this case, or not movements at all, like in my static phase, are intentional. That's what it's more easy to think about camera movements when we are, shooting a film and we have the real camera and we sit in our computers. We sort of need to force ourselves to think about these cameras. We maybe think like, okay, we are moving this composition here or there. But we can start to think about this as a language. moving the camera in a way, the different type of movements can convey an emotion or send a different message or feeling, as I said before, this Guardian of the Galaxy shot. So transitions and camera movements are defined by this story. And here's a question for you. Do you agree? Just a simple yes or no in the chat. That'd be great. I can continue talking. Anyone? Yes, no? Silence.
Hey, Kriti. Yeah, definitely. I think one of the big things that I've noticed is a lot of people, when we start out, especially me, I'm guilty of that as well, is just putting a camera moment or a transition just for the sake of it being there. And
yeah,
it sticks out as like a sore thumb. It's just terrible. Looking back, it just stands out, and I'm most of the time thinking all I need to do is a very subtle push forward or maybe a zoom out. But whatever I've done, or maybe it's just a random cut that I need, but whatever I've done is just standing out, and it doesn't look good overall. So yeah, I definitely agree. It matters this if it doesn't fit the story, no matter how beautiful the transition looks like. It just I've learned to take it out. I've learned to shut my ego and just take it out.
I agree with that. I think if I look back at my previous animations, like the first animations I've ever done, I can see how badly I was thinking about transitions, because at every point I was like, ooh, maybe a morph would look good here. And now I look at it, I'm like, there is literally no need for this. I mean, I literally put it just because it's possible, not because it's needed there or like it adds anything to the story. So, and I've also seen like some of the animations where people just overdo it sometimes, and sure, like it does look good, but it just doesn't add anything to the whole narrative. So yeah, I totally agree.
So, yeah, like I think that there is a moment in our careers where we learn many things, and ideally also cinematic language, and then it feels like you sort of forget everything, and you just write or design your storyboard, and it makes sense. That's when I think it's totally there. You internalize the language, and then you just speak it, speak the language in your own voice in the way. So yeah, transitions in animation, I'm just doing a little stop here about transitions. Transitions in animation are like, an entire topic to navigate. And for me, the most important, or the key here is that it needs to be connected with the story. We are going to see one afterward. But today, even if all about transitions seems to be, it's not. So what I want to say is, let's talk about camera movements. And I'm a big fan of camera movements, but still, sometimes we just need to hold our horses and wait a little bit. So for example, here is one. It's called the push in. And I'm mentioning a few types of camera movements, because in animation, or in the world of in our industry, I discovered that many people are using just two terms. One is panning and the other one is zooming. It looks like we are just panning and zooming everywhere, which I don't really fully understand, because, panning is sort of a difficult thing to do in animation. For a pan, the camera is always fixed on the same axis. So we rather pan horizontally, or we tilt if we do it vertically. So that's panning, and zooming is like an optical effect. So we need to change everything within the shot. And we are not doing that. We are going closer or farther away. So again, we can still continue to use it, but if we are going to work with a bigger studio, people that it's, or if we want to build a team and we need to speak this language and communicate better with the team, it's a good idea to learn a few terms and also use it in our favor to save up some animated frames and to level up our visual narratives. Yeah. So the push in. What's a push in? It's basically when we move the camera towards the subject, and we can use it to emphasize the moment or the feeling. So I have an example here that it's not exactly, there are more simple push-ins, and this is more like a crane, like a crane, or maybe more like a crane, I would say like a drone. It's more like a drone shot, like it's a really enormous push-in. Let's take a look. We start with all the shades going through the tunnel. This is from Ordinary Fog as well. And we go through this landscape, slow down a little bit, and then directly to the girl's eyes. This is an amazing pushing, especially this last part where we can see how she's from here. Yeah, you're going from the big picture, like the entire place, the entire amazing landscape where she was before in a dark mountain, winter, whatever, and now in contrast we bring her here to this amazing world, and we go through everything, and and focus on, emphasize this moment through this feeling of the eyes. So that's the push in. Goodbye, the push in. And now we have the pull out, which is, let's say, the reverse thing. And the pull out is also fantastic. I also love this one because we can create suspense by pulling out the camera. You can start in a little object, and then you can pull out, and reveal more things in the scene. So it's a narrative tool. The camera movements are a narrative tool. It's not just moving the camera because the sake of moving it and making it a little bit more engaging, but it makes sense. So revealing characters, objects with intention, or it could be something like used to detach from a scene, like like you are ending story, so you leave your character there, and you just leaving it alone or in a place, wherever, if it's full of people as well, or full of dots. And we pull the camera back or pull out slowly, and then it's sort of maybe, going from fiction to real life again, and just credits. So I have this example also from Ordinary Folk, one of my favorite pieces from them. And here, this is sort of, I especially brought this one, that it's a fake pull out. So that's why I'm doing this, because fake cuts makes a lot of sense in animation. We don't need, in animation we have so many possibilities, so we are free to do whatever we want. And here, this pull out is amazing. We don't need to pull out the camera like until we are in the universe. We just use 3 shots, 1, 2, and 3, and it works. And the 3 are pulling out a little bit, and together they are a big pull out. And it reveals, it goes from one little thing and reveal the vast world of connectivity, like everybody is connected through the phone. So it makes total sense going from a close-up to a wide shot. And then we have the classic, the tracking. The tracking, it's like the most used camera movements in films. We can do the tracking mostly, in every direction, handheld or in a dolly, or there are many ways also the tracking is called, but it's basically when we move the camera through the scene with the subject. And so where the subject is taking us. The subject could be a little dot. So here I have one example I love, that it's also we are sort of, following these dots around. He's transitioning from one thing to the other. There are so many transitions. Look at this one. It's so minimal and fantastic. We are here and there and continue going through the scene with the dot. So trackings in animation are not exactly like as in films. As we have to produce it, we have to design everything, but you can hide the cuts, as here, and when transitioning, you can hide cuts and make the shots look longer, or as if they are just one thing, even if we are moving from one thing to the other. Because many times I usually see many animation that everything is happening in the center of the screen, and we have so much to explore. We have depth. We can do so much with depth, and even if it's this 2D, we don't need to add any 3D elements per se. Real 3D. We just can use depth and play around with composition. And then we have the tracking. Now, before it was the tracking with the A, and now we have the U. It's more like we are in films we have a device to do this, but in animation we are just, this tracking could be more descriptive movements, and during these descriptions we could say, we could sort of think about the timeline, and we go from ancient times to the present, and we move through different ages in time. So with the tracking we could do something like that. This is an example from a documentary film called Luther, and it's just a short tracking here, but we go from the little guy here at the beginning, and we go through different things that later are gonna make sense if you know the story, if you hear the voiceover. So this type of description, so if we need to follow also a character horizontally, there are many things we can do with the tracking. The pedestal. What's a pedestal? It's sort of the same thing, but in a vertical way. We move the camera, that's the pedestal. And it's a vertical movement. It could also be descripted or connect 2 points, 2 locations, pass from one thing to the other, serve as a transition. So here, it's a beautiful example where you can see like these sorts of abstract shapes that are making sense and building a building. And arriving here to the crown, this specific moment. So it makes a lot of sense that we use the pedestal to do this type. And then we have here this beautiful arc shot. I love this one. It's maybe harder to perform if we are just in the realm of 2D, but it's not impossible. But it's a horizontal movement, and we're moving around the subject, and it keeps the focus on the subject. So we can use it to enhance the emotion. It could trigger suspense, tension, and could even be inspired. And here's where a note for Nolan films. I say that for a more surrealistic feeling, you can try a vertical arc shot. So let's take a look at this example. And this example, it's also really good in terms of transitions, because as I said before, in animation, we can do whatever we want. The key is that it makes sense with the story. So in this case, we have this little hand, and the girl is going inside this new world. And look what's happening here. She's sort of thrilling around, and then all of a sudden is in there, and the arc shot is revealing all this universe around her, and she starts, the story in here, like the new phase of the character's life. So again, you just touch the ball, and she entirely go with the colors, around the ball, and then she's here in the new world, and we spiral around, sort of spin around the girl, but she's all the time the focus of attention, and we can bring so much, emotion, feeling, and tell something, about what's happening. She was in a world, and now she's in another, and she's sort of immersed on this beautiful discovering things situation. And and the list goes on and on. There are more: the pan, the tail, the crane, the dolly zoom. We barely just say a little bit about all of them. But finally, like the last but not least, if we don't move the camera at all, you also communicate something. It also makes sense, to your audience. So this one, we call it the static shot. And well, so no matter what hits the road, keep going. That's my line. Keep going. So pick yourself back up and bring motion into your shots and your life. So that's it. Thank you. If any of you unmute, I can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Van.
That was great.
So yeah, I feel like we can talk a little bit around this. It was a little bit more than 30 minutes. It said like 40. So I was, I talked too much. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. I think some people have raised their hands. So if anyone wants to come forward and ask her questions and everything, or discuss something, you can do so. Irshad has raised his hands, I think.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So I just want to share one video. Today morning I saw it on my Instagram reel. It's really nice. Should I share the link over here? Because since I'm already presenting the screen.
Irshad, can you? Is there a way to? Can you
Or I can.
make it a bit more clear? Because I don't know if it's just my end. Can everyone else?
Yeah,
hear?
no, I couldn't hear that properly either.
Okay, so I just want to share one Instagram reel. So it has a really cool transition just for the.
Okay.
So I'll share this. I'll share the.
Would you like to paste it here in the chat and I play it here? Okay.
Yeah.
Shared.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Let me bring it here. Okay. Yeah. The infinite zoom. Oh, that's good. Wow. It's like the infinite transition of a wow. Oh my God.
That is, I think, very difficult to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's zoom in, zoom out. I think there are like some art shots as well. Like,
well, I think that
they're doing the mashup also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that the most important thing here is to think about the cuts that are being performed. Like it's not. Is this a truly infinite shot? There are many shots connected.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think so too. But it just seems so seamless.
Yeah, that's the performance that I'd say that it's amazing. And here the rotation, and then we go through the eye. Yeah, wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, amazing transition. So, it's any specific thing you like to mention about this transition, Irshad? I don't know how to pronounce your name. Sorry.
Yeah, it's Irshad. So I just want to add this, and I saved it today morning. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Also, there are some transition like in the movies. The trans movie. There are some mirror shot. It's already experimented in some Hollywood movies actually. Like the shoot happening in the mirror, but when the character reach almost near to the mirror, then we can see, it's a mirror. It's not the. I forgot the name actually.
Yeah, Contact. It's the movie Contact.
Yeah, it's from Contact.
I put the link on the chat. So.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Contact.
Yeah, there is a movie Contact where the character runs towards. Yeah, that's the one.
Exactly, this one. Exactly.
Okay.
Actually, even in Harry Potter, I think they done something similar too.
Mm-hmm.
Tracking shot. Wow. Okay, slow motion. And tricky mirror scene. Okay, what's going to happen? Oh, wow. Wow. That was, wow. So we are looking at the mirror all the time. Wow. How this happened? Oh my God.
So this is this a tracking shot that's coupled with
This is a tracking shot.
Actually, bro, it's a very simple trick. But once this video comes out, there were like none of them done it before. Yeah, I still remember like the
but
impact
here-
it got actually.
Look,
Actually, in the
here.
mirror, they used a green screen only, and they stitched too short. Actually, theoretically, it's very simple, but they figure out. Yeah.
Awesome, guys.
But anyone knows if this has been done in camera, because this can be done in post production perfectly.
I've seen the behind scenes, like they done that way. Like there are actually, it's a 2 videos actually. In the mirror actually, they put a green screen and projected the other one.
Oh, okay.
And like it's a basically compositing.
Yeah,
That's it actually.
you can do sort of a mask or something as well.
Yeah, I think the more
here.
tricky one, like maybe if you check down.
This is this. Boom.
Yeah, see, like it's a 2 separate shot. The opening scene and what we are shown in the like the mirror, it's a compositing part actually. It's a green screen thing. Maybe I think you guys can find like the tutorials in internet actually.
I think Nick has just posted that Corridor Crew has broken this down on their channel. So
Yeah. But I think the more difficult one, like if you Google down I think in Prisoner of Azkaban, there's a specific sequence like almost something similar to it.
With the
Prisoner of
Bogart.
Azkaban?
Oh, here
Yeah,
it's shown.
it's the Bogart one. Okay. Oh, I didn't even think of that.
I would like to just. I'm just going through the guys. I'm just going through the comments to because some of our attendees have some questions. So
Jakob has a question, I think.
Yeah. Priti, are you?
Yeah. Okay, so the question goes, do you have any recommendations for a book or some other resource on this topic? I think cinematic language in general, I guess.
Which one?
Just I think cinematic language in general.
Yeah,
If you have
cinematic
any-
language in general. I think nowadays there are so many YouTube channels that are good to explore. There is one called Studio Binder. It's amazing. You have everything you need to learn about cinematic language there. But for books, well, there is this classic series. It's called Master Shots that I like, but it's not that engaging in terms. It's more like one shot after the other. But it's great to have it sort of for checking out one thing or at any time you have it there, sort of a dictionary or something. And then what I do love, I love books on directors, on authors or directors, like, learning from David Mamet or learning from David Lynch or from Werner Herzog or even Tim Burton or I don't know, all these directors, and there are great books. I love the books that are written by the directors, or there are interviews, good interviews to the directors, more like all those books that are sort of reviews or analysis of what they're doing. I don't know, I can gather a few and make a list and share it with you later, maybe.
Oh yeah,
and I post
definitely.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
Also, Waseem has a question. How do you decide what movement is best while animating shapes?
Sorry?
How do you decide what movement is best while animating shapes?
Yeah, well, that was the center of this. We were talking here, like exactly that. Like, it's a great question. I'm always saying, like, if you don't have a story for any reason, because you just have a bunch of shapes and you want to animate them, just made up a little story around them. And from that story, you said this character is so lazy, this character has so much energy, and they are dots. Okay, they're not real characters or just shapes. So these shapes wants to go through these, but this one is super, I don't know, it's energetic, and the other one is lazy. So what's going to happen? And from any kind of story you give to these shapes, you will know what kind of movement they need. What they move in a way or the other. Also, we can think about movement as a more stylistic thing, like I'd say it's also like the part of the art direction of the piece. We choose the color palette, the type of shapes, if it has textures or not, what kind of camera movements we are going to do, what kind of shots we want to perform, and what type of animation we want for the film. It brings style. If it's more like a cutout, if we are, sort of missing frames, or is it just a seamless, super smooth flowing animation from one thing to the next? Is it going to be more techy or sci-fi, or, we need to give me something that it feels technological? It's going to be super smooth and organic, or it's going to be sort of flowing but had some more sharp movement in between. So it needs to make sense with the story, with the brand, with the message we need to communicate. It's not just there is nothing that it's going to say, like there is always clues to understand how things need to move. And I said before also, if we don't have any kind of story, if we just observe, if someone gave us the design, I'm just going to animate this, just observe the design. If the design's principles are there, we already have a story in place just by reading the design principles, the alignment they have, the layout. How is this layout? The visual hierarchy. The visual hierarchy is everything. I'd say, like, if this dot is bigger than the other, okay, you create depth, but also you create a relationship between them. This proximity, it's also a design principle. So that's why I'd say that the three things, like film, grammar, animation, and design, they need to work together. Like also design principles, we can also break rules, but using this, we can serve our narratives, take them to a next level. So I don't know if this answers the question, maybe. Yeah. Yes, no. Gestalt principles are also very helpful. Yeah, Gestalt principles are great as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think I would also like to add, this is something that Amin has always told me, and I think he's told several people during one of our sessions. It's like, if you have any simple shapes, what he usually does is, for example, if it's a sphere, he actually gets a ball and tries to bounce it around, see how it moves around. So you can develop a character from the real world that goes on. So I feel like, I think Amin does that regularly, so you can actually see how it reflects and how his animation, you can see that in his animations as well perfectly. Next, yeah, sorry. Yeah, you were saying something there?
Yeah, no. Yeah, any question, any other question? I don't know. Yeah, I love the idea of this, taking references from real world. I also done this many times for lighting, like understanding how light works. The best thing to do this is just, bring any kind of light, even the phone lantern on the phone, any kind of light, a spotlight, a little lantern, whatever, and just try things, put an object through the sunlight and see what happens. See what happens when you move the object, when you move the curtain, observe the real world, and you have so many amazing references, and you can later, explore around as we enter in our computer, and they just, go crazy.
And I think, sorry, was someone saying? Okay, I think Amrit has raised his hand, so come forward, Amrit, if you want to ask something.
Yeah, hi, Van. So,
Hey, hi.
hi. So, actually, like, as we were discussing more transitions, and also, I actually want to ask past few, something like I always get stuck with. So the thing is that, like let's just say I'm making some like motion graphics videos, and there are some certain scenes that I want to stitch in, in a, let's just say in a seamless transition. But like in professional videos, like ordinary folks, like they have this transition, they have this seamless transition, but they also have hard cuts, right? So like I just feel ki, I just sometimes I feel very puzzled, like when I'm like making seamless transition, I just feel that the entire video should have this kind of seamless transition. So like I'm just asking you, like how do you make such decisions ki, like this part should have this seamless transition, and this part should have some hard cuts, and let's say jump cuts or something like zoom in transition. So like how do you guys think about all these things?
Yeah, well, for me, it's a little bit the same thing to say, the same reply. It's like everything is about story, but I think, hard cuts are transitions, are definitely transitions, and hard cuts, or let's just call it cuts. It might be more like hard ones if we are cutting from things that need contrast. And then we can do a lot of fake cuts to make things feel more seamless, in fact. Like, for example, there is this typical camera movements called the wide pan. And it's when you have the camera and you move it fast.
Yeah.
Maybe towards a subject or a wall or whatever. And then you start the next shot from that place or from a different place, from a wall, and you just wipe to your pan to the other side, so it feels like it's one shot, but it's a transition. So in fact, it's a camera movement with a transition at the same time. But still, a jump cut is super useful for content creators that are making mistakes when they're talking. But also, to maybe tell the story of someone that it's, I don't know, maybe it needs to go, I don't know, let's say we have a room and we have this character, and the character is doing several things in this room because, I don't know, it's waiting for someone. And what this character is doing in the room, it needs to make sense for some reason in the story. Or say, I don't know, he's preparing something, or he's preparing a trap for the character is about to enter the scene. So the character is going to prepare everything, so everything is in a perfect place. But instead of having maybe 15 minutes of this person arranging things in a room, we do jump cuts, and we just we cut from one thing to the next that makes sense for the story, for what is about to happen. So that's the jump cut. Or if we also for fades, fades, it seems like when we are using Premiere or any video editor, it feels like fading is nothing. I'm always angry with, fading for nothing. It's like, please fade, especially when you're cross fading. You go from one thing to the next. You can create a third image in the middle of these two, and you can pull out, a meaning from this transition. To use it for a reason. Use this crossfade and bring some other meaning into this. Why we are crossfading from one thing to the other. And in fact, when we are doing fades, as we are also using more things than just video editors, and we can mask things out. So maybe we could, fade out the background in a character. We can, pushing the camera to the character and just, make the background go darker or go black, and we just focus on the character, and then boom, we are, I don't know, in a magic dream or something, and it's the universe behind, and the character is alone there, whatever. So it could be just sort of entering a fantasy. What else? I think if you learn the type of transitions, or the intellectual montage, is sort of, building a sequence through different kind of cuts that when they are put together, they make different meaning. They create a different meaning out of being put together. This is a classic Eisenstein juxtaposition idea that you put, one face of the character and one, food in front of him, and it looks like he's hungry. But if you put a different thing, it's gonna bring a different meaning to the audience. So in an intellectual montage, you build a sequence, creating, sort of, I don't know, we have the couple that's getting married, and we have the guy is with another girl. And then you can start building a relationship between the shots that start to make sense through the cuts, through the movements, through what they're saying and everything. And so you build a scene out of more of one scene. Yeah. And then it makes sense at the end because, I don't know, something happens and is this making is this reply to a question? I don't know.
Every single word made sense. So
yeah. But yeah, for me, it's all about the story. If we focus about the story, we know if we need the hard cut, if we need the fake cut. A fake cut is we sort of need it. Because it's easier. Like in the example I showed before, that we are, pulling out the camera and we are doing all these fake cuts, and they're cuts. They're just cuts.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for the story, for the sake of the story.
Got it. Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, Dilpreet has raised his hand, so I'm just gonna. Go ahead, Dilpreet.
Thank you. Hi, Van. Thank you so much.
Hey, hi.
It was a wonderful presentation, by the way. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Yes, the pleasure is all ours. So, Van, I have a question for you. In order to learn, more about the camera movements and those cinematic shots, do you suggest that learning storyboards for animation could be a good starting point?
Learning to do storyboards, storyboarding. It's. I think we need to learn the language to be able to do the storyboarding in that order. That's how I see it, at least. Because whenever we draw a vignette in the storyboard, it's a shot. We design the shot. So we decide what shot size it would be, what camera movement. And in fact, I always say this thing that in animation, transitions and editing doesn't start at the end of the entire thing, of the entire production. It starts at the beginning, when you're storyboarding, and then when you're doing the animatic for the film. There is when you need to sit down and think about the editing and the transitions. And it's through the storyboarding phase and the animatic phase. But yeah, for the storyboard, it's obviously it's a great way to force your brain to think about this language. And we are doing this, many of us are doing this by intuition. You think you need to get closer to something, or or just show everything, because you're trying to make sense with whatever you need to explain or to communicate.
Absolutely. Right.
But when you learn the language, okay, instead of just showing everything, I'm just going to show one thing on the foreground and everything is going to be blurred on the background. And this is telling something. You use this language whenever. The more you know the words, when you learn a new language, like whatever, French, German, English, Spanish, your language is many languages in India. And the more words you know, the better you can communicate. And the more grammar constructions you can do, the better you're going to sound more native, to the language.
That's right.
So it's the same. It's a language. Cinematic language. It's film language in the end. but applied to animation. So in a world where we have infinite possibilities of do whatever we want. So that's why it can, it's not just one thing alone. For films, yes, but for animation, it needs to blend with animation principles and with design, and all together there's something else. So maybe we can just make up a work here.
Very well said. Right. Thank you so much for this.
So yeah, well, in fact, so I'm gonna be doing, this just starting this summer. I'm gonna be launching these workshops, and these are on cinematic language for motion design, and it's a series of online live workshops that are really. They have a few seats per session because I'm highly interested in working with the people that are showing into the workshops, so we can really do some work there. And then when you go out, you sort of take it, with you. It's not like something that you heard and you just goes away or not, but it's more like you experience it, and then the next time you already know something, or you already know how to do it, how to apply it. So I have a link for you, for all of you here. There are just very, very few seats for the first one, but it's gonna be more during the summer and hopefully later as well. But each one of the workshop has a specific topics. I also have a form in my website that you can fill in, and you can let me know if you are interested in any specific topic, so I can do a workshop on any of these. But if you agree, Vishal, I'm going to paste this link here in the chat. And this is a private link to this specific workshop that is like the first one. There will be, if you go to my site, there are other links. But this one, if you go through this, it's like sort of a special offer. So if you come from here, from this talk, I will give you also like a one-to-one feedback session on anything, any personal project, show reel, work career, or a talk, whatever you want. So this is
yes, definitely. Van, go ahead and paste the link. Yeah, thank you very much.
That's just very, very few seats, truly. They're written there, so it's just a few. So yeah, and if you ever want to say hi, I'm like every day on LinkedIn, Instagram, and everywhere. You can join me also on Discord, and maybe I can paste also the link here, and we can talk about any film language, cinematic transitions, or what you want. So I was going to here is this Discord if anyone feels like joining, or if it need to, I don't know, have a project and you're stuck in the project for any reason or any transition and you want to talk about cinematic language, I'm always here. So you are all mute. I'm talking a lot. Anyone on mute, please? Okay, thank you, Misha.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had muted myself, because I didn't want to create any static. But yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I also want to thank you all for being here. And there are some people from Barcelona. They're my friends as well, like Nick, Igor, and there was Erin. She's in Explainer Camp at School of Motion with me this session. And all of you, I don't know you. Some of you, I recognize your names from social media, but so happy to see you, sort of more real environment that is not just writing around comments on LinkedIn or something. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's a great presentation, man.
Thank you very much, Van. It's been a very pleasure to have you here and talk about film language and cinematic transitions. It's been. I know that you prepared a lot for this. Ever since we talked about it, you've been updating your presentation and telling me. So I really appreciate you for doing this. And everybody else, I really recommend you guys checking out her workshops. It's amazing. That's something I would also be probably be joining as well. So and if there is any, if anybody has any last minute questions, you can come forward right now. Or if anyone who is not in F9 or Toggle, you're more than welcome to drop me a message on Instagram, or I think I'll share my email here. So I can add you in there. So that's it's a very it's a community of motion designers who are very active, and everyone's more than happy to help you out in any way possible. So thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you again, Van, for this lovely
Thank
session.
you. Thanks to you.
Van.
Thank you.
Thanks to you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
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 See you guys. Bye bye. Have a good night from it.